Hi, I hope that you are having a nice day today. I am here today to talk about the day that my son got diagnosed with hypoplastic left heart syndrome. I kind of want to spend some time talking about the diagnosis and some things that we went through during that time. So, when I was 18 weeks pregnant, that was the week when my OBGYN usually did the anomaly scan. And that's also like the week when if you want, you can find out if your baby is a boy or a girl. So at the 18-week anomaly scan, we were told that everything looked good except they couldn't see all four chambers of his heart. So they said, come back in 2 weeks when he's a little bit bigger and we will rescan. So that was also the day that they said, by the way, it's a boy. So I have 3 kids and he was my only boy. So we were, of course, concerned about them not being able to see all four chambers of his heart, but we were also really excited to find out that we were going to have a little boy. So, um, and that he would have 2 big sisters to love on him. So we celebrated even though there was a lot of uncertainty still. And then 2 weeks later, we came back and they did another ultrasound and they still couldn't see all four chambers of his heart. So my OBGYN, sorry, she told us that she was concerned about this and she said don't stress about this because stressing about this, it won't change anything and it's not really good for you or your baby to, you know, be too stressed. And so she said, I'm going to send you to my friend who is a specialist, a maternal fetal medicine specialist, and I would like for him to do an ultrasound and take a look at your baby's heart and just see what he thinks is going on. So 2 weeks after that would have been week 22 of the pregnancy. So I went to see him and we were there for a really, really long time. And he did the most thorough ultrasound that I didn't even know it was possible to do that long of an ultrasound. But he was taking lots of pictures. He was looking at the size and shape of his heart. He was looking at the blood flow. And I remember he could tell that I was really anxious, but he just kept telling me, just wait, just stay calm. I promise I'll explain everything. And so I tried to stay calm, but I knew that if it was taking that long, then something was probably very wrong. And so um, tears just started coming. I wasn't sure like what exactly I was crying about, but I just was like, it was out of my control. Tears just started rolling out of my eyes, and his nurse was in the corner. So he had a nurse kind of sitting in the corner of the room, and she noticed me crying, and she just brought me a box of tissues, and she just sat next to me and like held my hand, and she was just really supportive while I was having to just wait. Waiting was hard. It was just, and I was just, they just let me lay there and cry. And after he looked at everything that he wanted to look at, he said, your baby's still really small, but this looks to me like a textbook case of hypoplastic left heart syndrome. And the reason I say that is because I can already see hypoplasia in his left ventricle, and I see aortic atresia, which means no blood flow through the aortic arch, and mitral stenosis, which means that there was limited blood flow through the mitral valve. So he said, it's a lot more complicated than this, but he said, His left ventricle is underdeveloped, so underdeveloped that it can't fill up with blood. And that's a problem, right? Because your left ventricle is the one that is supposed to pump your blood to the rest of your body. So he was really just amazing at being matter of fact and compassionate all at the same time. So he said, this is severe and it is going to require a 3-step surgical repair. And he said that based on what I'm seeing now, I think that your baby probably has a 75 to 80% chance of making it through the first surgery. And he told me the names of the surgeries, but I guess he didn't want to like overload me with information that day, but he told me what the diagnosis was, hypoplastic left heart syndrome. And he said, I'm going to refer you to a tertiary care center, and I'm going to go ahead and start a plan of care for hypoplastic left heart syndrome. He said, you're going to get really tired of me because after 32 weeks of pregnancy, you're going to see me once a week and you're going to see your regular obstetrician once a week. So you'll have appointments twice a week. We're going to get to know each other really well because I'm going to be doing lots of echocardiograms, and they're probably going to take at least an hour each. So let's just go ahead and be friends because we're going to be seeing a lot of each other. He said, after you get past 36 weeks of pregnancy, I strongly recommend that you relocate so that you can be right next to the hospital where he's going to be receiving his surgery. The first surgery will have to happen within the first week of his life because once his septum starts to close, his heart is going to try to over circulate, and then that's usually when the problems start. So he said he was really just extremely kind and compassionate. And here's another thing that he said. He said, I can kind of empathize because I lost one of my babies to heart defects. So imagine you're a maternal fetal medicine specialist and you diagnose heart defects every day after losing one of your own babies to heart defects. And that's what this man did every day. And I said, how are you able to do this every day after what you've been through? And he said, and this is his words. He said, I'm going to be honest. It really sucks sometimes, but it's comforting for me to know that I'm hopefully giving some of these babies a chance to get better. So I was extremely blessed to have wonderful, wonderful doctors taking care of me and taking care of my son. And this man was so kind. He said, your husband's probably going to want to talk to me. So he got a piece of paper and he wrote down his first and last name and his personal cell phone number. And he said, anytime you want to talk about this, you can call me day or night. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. If I don't answer, leave me a voicemail and I will call you back. But anytime you feel like you need to talk about this, call me. And so that was just the kind of wonderful specialist that helped us start this journey with our baby. And so that was just extremely just helpful to have someone like that watching over us and helping us. So he gave me his number and he said, call me anytime. Your husband can call me anytime. I'll answer whatever questions he has. And they both like hugged me, like he and his nurse both, they gave me a hug and they said, the doctors said this. They said, we want you to know that we love you and we're going to be praying for you. And this next 4 months is going to be the hardest 4 months of your entire life. So just be prepared, because it's going to be hard, but also just remember that you can do this. So after the appointment was over, I went to the car. I called my husband. I told him as much as I could tell him at the time. And I called my dad. And I would have called my mom, but I knew she was at work, and she can't talk on the phone while she's at work. So I called my dad and I talked to both of them. And when I got home, I think it took my husband about 4 hours before it finally set in, like, something is drastically wrong with your baby. Something is very, very wrong with your baby, and you are facing the real possibility that you might lose a child. It took about 4 hours for that to set in. So he was just kind of, at first he was like, oh, it's going to be okay. They have surgeries, and they have lots of, really good doctors that'll be able to help him. And so he was sitting at his computer, and I think he might have been playing a video game or something, like just trying to distract himself. And all of a sudden, he just bursts into tears. He just starts, like, crying like I've never seen him cry before or since. So at that point, my oldest child was 4, and my middle child was, I think, maybe 1. She was barely a year old. She's like maybe just turned 1. So my 4-year-old was like, okay, what's wrong with daddy? And so I had to try my best to explain hypoplastic left heart syndrome to a 4-year-old. And I think what I told her was, we just got some bad news about your baby brother, and the doctors told us that his heart is broken, because I thought that, a 4-year-old would understand broken, right? So I said, his heart is broken, but don't worry, because they're going to try to fix it. That's how I explained it to her as a 4-year-old. And so I think that we ended up calling my in-laws, and they came and they picked up the girls and just kept them that night. My girls spent the night with them, because we were like, we were just so sad. My husband ended up crying himself to sleep on the bathroom floor. That's how he went to sleep that night. And after a couple of hours, I was finally able to get him to get up and get in the bed. But just absolutely devastating news. I mean, the saddest that you could imagine a person to be. That's where we were that night. And so a couple of days after that, the girls were back home, and we were trying to, just process this news, just trying to process this news and trying to get ready for everything that we were about to have to go through. And at the time, I was teaching English as a foreign language. I'm an English teacher. So I was teaching English as a foreign language, and my sweet little daughter, right before I was about to leave to teach an 8 o'clock class, looked me straight in the eye and said, Mama, is my baby brother going to go to heaven and live with God? And all I could think to say at the moment was, well, hopefully not yet. Hopefully not yet. I said, we're going to do everything we can to try to help him get better. And we're just going to hope that everything works out. So I went to class, and there was no way for me to not tell my students what was wrong, because they knew I was pregnant and they knew that I was really sad. So I just told them everything. I said, I had a really bad news yesterday at the doctor, and they were, I told them what hypoplastic left heart syndrome was, and I said, my baby's sick. He has a heart defect, and he's going to have 3 open heart surgeries. And so they were just incredibly kind and supportive. And I remember there was this lady she was older than a traditional age student. Like she was like maybe in her 40, like maybe early 40s or something. And that first class, it was a reading class. And I gave them an assignment. I said, if you don't mind, today, I'm going to have some trouble getting through the day today. So I'm going to give you an assignment in our textbook, and I'm going to let you have the class time to work on it. And they said, yeah, that's fine. You know, they were very understanding. And then this lady, she was on my right. So I just remember, like, I was standing at the front, and I was trying to hold it together, but I wasn't doing a very good job of holding it together. And she looked up at me and she said, it's okay. You can sit down. We'll be okay today. And so I said, okay. And so I sat down at the desk and I just tried to breathe through it. And they did their in-class assignment. And then for the next 4 months, it was, in fact, the hardest 4 months of my life up to that point. I reached, I guess, depths of despair that I didn't even know existed. You know, I I had to schedule time to cry every day. Like I would go teach my classes in the morning, and then I would go home and give myself about 3 hours to just cry. And then I would go pick up my girls from school. And that was my life for a few months. And it got to the point where I was so depressed that I started to feel like, I don't know if this makes sense, but I started to feel kind of like a ghost. Like I felt like something inside of me like had died, and I couldn't understand why my body was still going. Like that's how bad it was. And so I just kept telling myself, like, you have to keep going because this baby needs you. Your other babies need you. So my babies kept me going, and they still keep me going. I tell them all the time, I don't know if you are going to be able to understand this, but I've always needed you a lot more than you need me. And I think that's always going to be true. So they helped me keep going. And for that second half of the pregnancy, you know, it was a weird combination of feelings. I kind of felt like the diagnosis was robbing me of the excitement of being pregnant because I wanted to be excited about meeting him. You know, I was like, part of me was like, I can't wait to see this baby. You know, I want to meet him. I want to hold him. And at the same time, there was another part of me that wanted to stay pregnant forever because I was his own personal heart and lung machine. And I knew that if I was pregnant, then he was safe. As long as I was pregnant, he was safe because he was depending on me instead of his own heart to take care of him. So I kind of felt like the box that contained Schrodinger's cat, because as long as he was in there, he was okay. But after he was born, we didn't know what was going to happen. So I was the box containing Schrodinger's cat, and my son was Schrodinger's cat. That's what I felt like at the time. I went to some really dark places in my mind. I started to think about, like, what if he doesn't make it? And what happens to babies who don't make it? I started to think about things like, you know, what if he does pass away? Is there like an angel somewhere whose job it is to rock those babies that don't make it? That was a thought that I had. So yeah, I went to some pretty dark places. But I also understand how lucky I am that he did as well as he did with everything that he had to go through. And I'll talk more about each surgery later. I have so many more stories to tell, but today I just wanted to focus on um, the diagnosis of hypoplastic left heart syndrome, what it felt like for me, what it felt like for my husband, and also I wanted to say, like, you can do things, you'd be surprised how much you're able to um, you'll be surprised how strong you are and how much you are able to hold on through in the process. I mean, you're going to surprise yourself and you're going to be amazed by yourself. And for me, this experience, it has really helped me. I think it's helped me try to be a better person, and it's helped me have so much more empathy for other people in general, because it has helped me realize you never know when that stranger that you meet on the street is going through the worst day of their life. You would never know. And um, the day that we got, the day after we got the diagnosis, I found a little tiny little sticky note, and I wrote down one of my favorite Bible verses on it, and I stuck it to the bathroom mirror. And I'm pretty sure the color has faded out of the paper because it's been there so long, but it's still stuck there. I never took it down because I wanted to remember. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on understanding." Um, and the reason I put that there is because it was comforting to me. And another thing that I held on to during this time, I also thought about the shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus wept. Now, here's why that verse was so comforting to me. Because in that story, Jesus had just gone to see Lazarus's family because Lazarus had just died. He had been 4 days, right? So Lazarus died, and Jesus got there on, I think it was the 4th day, and he was not crying because Lazarus was dead. He was crying because he was overcome with sympathy for Lazarus's family, because he saw them crying and it made him cry. So I thought, if Jesus is overcome with emotion for these people, Lazarus's family, he loves me too. He loves me just as much as he loved them. So when we go through painful experiences, I like to think that he's there with me whenever I go through painful experiences. I'm running out of words a little bit. I guess I've been talking about this for a while now, but when we go through suffering, he's there. At least I feel in there. So that was something that comforted me. So like I said, I have a lot more to talk about, and I think that I want to leave this here for now. So if you are watching this video, thank you so much for watching. And I hope that listening to me talk about my story and tell my story and just talk about this is helpful for someone somewhere. I hope that if you need someone to talk to, I hope that you will let me know. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate you being here and watching, and I'm going to go now, and I'll see you soon.